My name is Barb Solomonson, and I have always been a wanderer. I grew up at Old Mission, wandering in the fields and the hills and woods of the area, as well as the west side of Traverse City. I now live on the west side of Traverse City and spend part of each day walking in the commons, over at Hickory Meadows, or in the Hickory Hills area. I love watching all the changes nature has to offer. More and more as years have gone by, I see more houses being built in what may have been considered woodland areas. I wondered what happens to the wildflowers that were once in those areas. I decided to go talk to John Prinz at the Grand Traverse Area Conservation District. He is in charge of the Native Wildflower Rescue Program.
I am the outreach specialist, so I do a lot of the marketing and PR, but I also coordinate the native plant rescue program here at the Grand Traverse Conservation District.
Okay. And why are native plants so important and wildflowers so important in our area?
For a number of reasons, but first and foremost, the environmental reasons. Native plants have been growing here and evolving for a lot longer than you and I have been here. And along with those plants, also a whole subset of insects have evolved with them. And these insects, more of them populate these native plants than non-native plants, which means these insects are food for other animals, other critters, birds and other varmints and stuff like that, which then in turn continues to work its way up the food chain. So it increases the biodiversity of all the insects and living creatures here in northern Michigan. They require a lot less pesticide and water for the same reasons. They've been evolving here to fit this climate and to fit this area for a really long time. So they're really good and have a high survivability. They're very hardy. So they require a lot less of that artificial nurturing to keep them alive. And so less pesticides and less fertilizers means less of that's going into our ground and into our groundwater eventually, and having a negative effect on insect populations and other animal species. And for some of these same reasons, it's good for you and I in terms of, you just have to spend less time paying attention to them. That means less Saturday or Sunday afternoon chores and more time outside enjoying that. You don't have to water them all the time. You don't have to worry about putting pesticides and fertilizers on them all the time. The mission of the Native Plant Rescue Program is essentially to rescue native plants in Grand Traverse County. We work with willing landowners to come out to their property. We get permission from the landowners to go out to their property with a group of volunteers to identify and dig up native plants that are there. Then we transport them, repot them, and then they are sold at the Grand Traverse Conservation District's annual native plant sale. So it's a really cool loop. We go and we rescue these plants that would otherwise be destroyed, and the sale of them helps support the work. It's an important fundraiser for the conservation district, supports the work of the conservation district, and it redistributes those native plants back to the community. So it's a really, it's a really cool circle there in how it all works. As far as land development goes, it can be anything from someone ripping out an old native landscape, or just doing landscaping in general, which they're going to rip out a bunch of native plants, to a road widening project, to a logging project, to a residential home development. So it's anywhere where the plants are going to be destroyed. And it could be as simple as someone putting a driveway in on their house. A typical morning, it doesn't look, a lot of them kind of look like this, I suppose. And I'm assuming my same kind of slight shiver mode, but I usually have a cup of coffee in my hand. While drinking my coffee, I will usually, engage in conversation with the plant rescuers as we meet in the Borden River Nature Center parking lot. We joke around a little bit, wait for everybody to meet, and then we, I'll discuss the plan for that morning and give any quick updates that need to happen, and then we'll, once we take care of that, we carpool to the plant rescue site. We already have some carrying trays with us, so we lay those out, and the rescue volunteers head into the woods with their shovel and a tray, and they start digging up the native plants that they see. And usually there's a few questions that get raised throughout the morning about what's this or what's that, and you call over an expert, which usually is not me, and we figure it out, and we have a good time, and then in the process we rescue some native plants, and once we have our fill, we load up all those native plants into the truck on those trays, and we head to the potting site, and we get into a nice, what I'd like to say, efficient assembly line, and we repot those native plants, and we continue to have a good time, I hope. And then we usually have someone who's placing them by species so that we can count them in the end, and then we pack up and usually wrap up within a half day, and that's pretty much what a typical day goes like. There's a few hiccups along the way here.
Who is your typical volunteer? Do you have children or retired people, or who comes?
It really is can run the gamut as to who can be a native plant rescue volunteer. We've had school groups with kids who are 10 years old. Of course, they're accompanied by some parents and maybe a school staff member, to someone who really has never stepped foot in the woods or doesn't know anything about native plants and just wants a reason to get outside, to someone who's an expert. We have a need for everybody. I certainly was an expert when I started. I probably ask more questions than is good for me, but it doesn't matter. Anyone who's interested in getting involved with some hands-on conservation in northern Michigan is perfect. There's it really is a wide variety of people that are involved, which is great. It keeps it interesting. It's a great way to meet new people. It's a great way to learn new things. It's a great way to do your part.